home for college sports.
We have to be a team that does a great job doing what we're coached to do.
It's time for the U.S. Bank Cougar Coaches Show.
It's more important to decide what you're going to do and just explode and do it. They're very young guys.
They're going to get explosive all of a sudden.
Games aren't won on one day. Games aren't won with one play. Games are won over the course of an entire week.
This is the U.S. Bank Cougar Coaches Show on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. U.S. Bank, proud sponsor of the Washington State Cougars. U.S. Bank, the power of possible. Tonight's show is also brought to you by Northern Quest Resort and Casino, by Zeppo's, the home for the Cougar Coaches Show, and by Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Now live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
Cougs are 3-0. How about it? 3-0 back-to-back years for the first time since 1997, 1998 when they last went 3-0 back-to-back years. 59-24. The Cougs scored 59 against Eastern Washington, and the Eagles had been in shootouts with Pac-12 teams. They had forced the Ducks a couple of years ago to score 60. It was a 61-40-something game. They had almost beaten the Huskies in a game that was in the 50s, and, of course, the game that was 45-42 a few years back here, a couple of years back in Martin Stadium. That season opener we all remember all too well, and the Cougs made sure that wasn't going to happen again here and did a great job with the halftime adjustments and shut the Eagles down 59-24. And how about Gardner Minshew and Travell Harris reigning Pac-12 Players of the Week? How about that? Offensive Player of the Week and the Special Teams Player of the Week. Travell had that 100-yard kick return, a really funny moment. Rob Taylor was actually at this game, and he was the last Coug to have the 100-yard kick return, and that was in Tempe. And Rob was on the sideline, and Jessamine got him on the air real quick, and he said, well, Travell was great. Mine was 104. They just don't count it because I was 4 yards deep in the end zone in a pretty funny moment. And Rob was also a little bit jealous that Travell got to do it at home behind the home fans, and he did it in Tempe where everybody was dead silent, although there's some gratification to that too. It was fun to have Rob back on and hear from him. Minshew, 470 yards. He's now number one in the nation in passing yards a game. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's completing 71% of his passes. That's number one in the Pac-12. Gardner's been fantastic through 3 games, and now it's getting real. Now you're into Pac-12 play, and you're going to the Coliseum, and the Trojans have won 17 straight there, and that includes 12 straight in Pac-12 play. And you know they started 2016 1-3, and then they won 9 straight to end the year, so they're 1-2 right now. And by all accounts, USC's USC, and they're a really good team with the reigning Pac-12 Coach of the Year and Clay Helton. So what a big game it will be. Last year's game here in Martin Stadium, as good a football game, as good an environment as there ever possibly could be anywhere in the country. An absolute classic, and everybody rushed the field with the Eric Powell field goal and the Jahad Woods forced fumble. So it couldn't be a more exciting time to go talk football with Coach Leach in just a moment. I've got word here. He's coming from the practice field. Let's relive Eastern Washington for a moment, take a break, and come back live with Coach Leach here at Zeppo's.
Cougs, Eagles.
Thursday night practice field. Let's get right to the questions here, and one of them is quite pertinent, Coach. And I often ask you this one almost every time, but we're gonna throw it out here from one of our great guests. After 4 weeks, who's standing out in Thursday night football, and specifically, how's Cam Cooper, the quarterback, doing?
We had a bunch of guys stand out today. Really pretty good effort. Let's see, Cade Beresford did. Cam Cooper did.
Cade's an offensive lineman, right?
Yeah, Cam Cooper did. Let's see here. Kynell Wilson on offense. Both Grays caught a ball, one of them caught a touchdown. And then in the O-line, I'd say just in general. And then defensively, Lamont McDougall, we have trouble stopping him. Dallas Hobbs, Pladson, the linebacker, Love, and I'm leaving some out on defense that, because they flew around to the ball pretty good. So we've been kind of trading blows. So last week the defense had the upper hand, offense had the upper hand today.
Lamont McDougall was freshman All-American last year at West Virginia, and he transferred over here, and he's a really good-looking defensive lineman. He's redshirting this year. How'd you know Lamont, and how did he come from Morgantown to Pullman?
Well, I coached Lamont's dad at University of Oklahoma. His dad is Stalker McDougall, who was, a first-round draft pick offensive lineman from he was from Miami originally, and Stalker and I have kept in touch since then. And Lamont, of course, is his son. And Lamont was looking to make a change, wanted a little bit different defensive scheme. And so once he got his once he got his release, then Lamont came up here, liked it, and so we got Lamont McDougall to look forward to next year, who's just thick and solid. I mean, he's the most thick, solid guy you've ever seen.
I think that's an understatement. I mean, he is a well-built freshman. He looks like your prototypical, nose tackle, D tackle kind of guy, doesn't he?
Oh, I mean, he creates a pile. On his worst plays, he creates a big pile in the lap of the quarterback. On his best plays, and he's hard to get under, and he's real quick. And then, of course, he'll get in there and just be even more disruptive than that.
Yeah, some of the drills, as a redshirt, he's still doing drills, like you said, Thursday night football, and some of the stuff I've been able to witness he does with a certain amount of strength, authority, and dedication. It's pretty obvious. He's not your typical redshirt, sophomore redshirt. He'll be a redshirt sophomore next year. This is a really well-built, highly developed defensive lineman.
Yeah, and he's really confident guy. He expects to win every rep, and we try to stalemate him as much as we can. And then he's over there on scout team because of the transfer rule. He'd be playing if there wasn't a transfer rule. So he's over there on scout team, and we move him around so that we give every one of those offensive linemen a taste of him and let him beat up on all of them, and see if they can hold him out, and figure if they can hold out Lamont McDougall that they'll have a pretty good shot on Saturday.
Yeah, that'd be indicative. Hey, let's go right back to some more questions here. Michael, who helps me print my boards out, and a huge thanks to Michael every week up there in the Cub. Michael asks you, Coach, we all know you work 7 days a week, but are you a pro football fan? He specifically hopes for you to be a Cowboys fan. I personally don't agree with that opinion or request, but do you have any thoughts on that matter?
I know a bunch of the Cowboys guys. I've always liked them, and they've always treated me like $1 million, and it's really a first-class organization. Even though I don't have a lot of connections to it, other than I know Aaron Rodgers a little bit, and then Graham played there. As a kid, I was always a Green Bay Packers fan, and so I rooted for the Packers. And then as a coach, I kind of follow around the guys where I like their scheme. If I like what they do on offense, then I like them. So I like the Patriots. The Cowboys are throwing at some. I like Green Bay. I like Philadelphia. I like Kansas City. One team that looks good that's really tough right now is the Jaguars. If they throw it a bunch, I like them. If they don't throw it, then I hate them. But most of them throw it, so it's kind of hard to split them apart now. I mean, every one of them are trying to throw it more. I like some of the stuff the Rams do too. I don't watch a lot of it this time of year. At the end of the year during bowl season and stuff, we get all their film, so we'll watch, like I say, the guys I like and kind of look at their scheme, what they're doing, think about some things.
What do you think back in the day of the that Rams team, the greatest show on turf, the one that really was notorious for throwing the ball all the time, and even their running back, Marshall Faulk, they threw to him, and then Kurt Warner was throwing it everywhere and all that. Was that something that you looked at as relatable?
Well, I know Dick Vermeil, and then, of course, Mike Martz worked for him, and later Mike Martz was the head coach there, and Dick was there when they won the Super Bowl, and then so was Mike, and then Dick Vermeil I've gotten to know real well, who's a fantastic guy, who's a guy that kind of a mentor I can bounce stuff off of. He goes down there to Key West a lot, and so we'll meet up for breakfast, and I'll ask him questions and have him hold court for 2, sometimes 3 hours, and so we get breakfast, and I learn a lot from Dick Vermeil.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad I asked. Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a fun football breakfast right there in Key West if you were to stumble on it. Michael, thank you for your question and your participation. We've asked you this one. It's always a fun question. You've given the answer to this many a time, and I don't know that you've got one, but Brian asks on Twitter, M_Chaz, best away stadium that you've ever coached in.
Best away stadium I've ever coached in, not the loudest. It's loud, but it's not the loudest. The best is LSU. The best away stadium I've ever coached at's LSU. Some of the great ones would be Arkansas at Little Rock, and that's the loudest. 45,000 people there in that echo chamber that's all concrete, and they're shooting howitzers, and it doesn't necessarily require a touchdown to shoot a howitzer. But LSU, I mean, those people have been out there all afternoon, especially when they played at night, and they'd rock your bus, they'd flip off your bus, they'd moon your bus, and it was the quarters would get tighter and tighter as you go, and so then they're against your bus yelling, and then they start pushing it so it starts rocking as you get closer. Then they and then once you get out, you have to get out single file because there's a gauntlet, and you have to go through that gauntlet, and then they're going to kind of pluck at the side of you as you go through the gauntlet. And then you go in the locker room, and there's a pipe, and I'll bet you it's still there, just this steaming, hissing pipe. And I was curious if it was just for effect like a haunted house or if it was actually hot. So I licked on my finger and I touched it really fast, and it's hot. and then so you sink down, and it's all just kind of mildew and moss and stuff there in that locker room, and it's small, and you can smell the locker room too. and then you go out on the field, and that tiger, Mike the Tiger's sitting right there, and he's in this cage that's got these bars on it, but every digit on Mike's paw is bigger than any one of those bars. And it's pretty clear that Mike could probably get out if he wanted to. And then the student section's there screaming and yelling, and they'll hurl pennies at you. They heat up pennies and toss them at you. And then, which is, that's way overrated because they'll toss out these heated pennies, and, by the time they go through the air, they're only warm. And so you get a couple pennies, and then then the atmosphere is fantastic. The music, they kind of play this jazzy music. If you do a good play, kind of a dazzly play, and they like it, they'll cheer for you. And they want to cheer against you, but they'll cheer for you if you do a good dazzly play. They'll boo their team, too, if they don't like the way things are going. And then the other thing that's kind of cool, they got a traditional goalpost there in the end zone that, is one of those H-shaped goalposts. And I can't remember the significance of it. And then the structure, I don't think there's still dorms. The structure, they used to have dorms on that one level there in the stadium that were student dorms. Like literally you could be in your dorm looking out the dorm window and watching LSU play. And so you can imagine what a great deal that would be. That'd be a cool place to live, And then most of the SEC, when they escort you to the games, one of the best shows is watching that escort because it's death-defying, and they go 100 miles an hour, and motorcycles barely keep from getting wiped out and stuff like that. And then LSU's different. LSU's, as the crow flies, the hotel you stay in is pretty close, but then their bus escort is deliberately slow. They make you go really slow, and you go right through the hood, kind of through the swamp. It's like the opening scene of the movie Blue Chips, if you ever saw that. And I mean, there's indoor furniture on the front lawn. There's tires. There's cars jacked up. There's people in their yards screaming and yelling at you, throwing stuff at your bus. And I mean, it was such. I mean, just the whole environment and the intensity of playing there. And the opposing fans, I was so happy I almost cried. And then it was just outstanding. And then but there's a lot of great places to play.
What about the locker room in Starkville?
Locker room in Starkville. Now that is a work of art. That's a work of art, and I'm very envious. I wish that I'd come up with this, and I wish I'd had a hand in this. I did not, but I wish I did. In this new political correct era, we're trying to design locker rooms that are basically the equivalent of an airport lounge for these opposing teams. Some VIP section deal. But the Mississippi State didn't get that memo, at least last time I was there. Of course, that was years ago. And at Mississippi State, and I walked in, I was in awe of just how outstandingly obnoxious it was. So you walk in there, and it's a place, it's all concrete. The entire thing is a concrete box. The floor is concrete, the walls are concrete, the ceiling's concrete. And so then, and it's approximately, let's see, looking at Zeppos here, it would be approximately, I'm going to say a quarter smaller if we were to square off this area right here. It's about a quarter smaller. That's the whole locker room. Maybe
for like 150, for like 130 guys.
Yeah, maybe smaller than that. It may be smaller than that. Well, you can kind of sort it this way, really. So there's no lockers. Like all this, when I told you it's a concrete box, there's no lockers. There's no chairs. There's no seats. There's no nothing. Okay, and then on the wall, there's a nail. There's a nail in the wall where you're allegedly supposed to hang your equipment on. And I counted those nails because I was curious how many nails there were. There's 37 of them. And those nails are spaced, about a yard apart. So you hang one guy's stuff on one nail, set the other guys on the floor. Hang the next guys on one nail, set the others on the floor because you bring 70. And then this was the crowning achievement. In the middle, dead center in the middle of that locker room, there are 2 toilets. 2. Okay, now there's no lids on the toilet because they know that some guy might look at it and be offended by this rather than appreciate the artistry that exists in putting this thing together. And they're afraid he'll take the lid off and shatter it or something, so you don't get the lid. Okay, no lid, no seat. And then there is one roll of toilet paper set right between those 2 toilets. And then you go down Then you go, okay, and then they have and it's kind of got a 70s look, that one end zone. And it used to be anyway, they had that spiral walkway that's like this. And so it'd spiral down. And I always wondered, oh, why don't they hurry off the field? Those turns aren't that sharp, And I'm thinking, why isn't the team just running up that spiral thing? That spiral thing, whatever's the smoothest concrete on earth. The smoothest concrete on earth, there's no steps. This doesn't have steps. The smoothest concrete on earth is on that spiral thing in Starkville, Mississippi. So if you want to know how to make really smooth concrete for something in your house or your garage, those guys in Starkville know how to do it. And now the one thing, which I thought was a little out of character, was there is a banister along that spiral thing. So these guys are hanging on for dear life, and when they're going back to the locker room, kind of mountain climbing their way up that banister to get up there in the locker room. And then I thought it was just outstanding.
Amazing. Brian, thank you for the question. Download the all-new WSU Cougar Game Day app presented by Gus Johnson Ford today. Enjoy exclusive content, maps up to the minute news, live audio, game day offers, and more. Available in the App Store and Google Play. Download today. More back here live with Coach Leach and Zeppos next on the Washington State IMG Sports Network.
Here's Matt Chazanow.
We are back live here at Zeppos. 3-0 Cougs, back-to-back years. 3-0, first time since 1997, 1998. For the world's most refreshing beer, 21 means 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We didn't talk at all about Eastern Washington. I want to talk a little bit about that game with you, Coach. 59 points put up. Gardner Minshew and Travell Harris reigning Pac-12 Players of the Week offensively and for special teams. As you watched the film on that one, getting ready for USC, what were your assessments of the Eastern Washington game?
Well, I always look at it, did we get a week better and where did we improve and where do we have to shore up? Because all you got control of is practice and your improvement. And then opponents vary, so you try to, you can't really control that. You just control yourself. And I thought we improved. I thought we were more synchronized on all three sides of the ball. Defense early and late, I thought we played really well. I thought we had a good fourth quarter. In the middle, we gave up a few more explosives on defense than we would have liked. I thought we were pretty consistent throughout the day on offense. And a lot of receivers caught the ball, so we got a lot of young guys that we want to get experience to them. And the best way to get experience to a guy is get a ball in his hands. And then I thought that special teams, we looked pretty good. We really got a lot of buy-in. Matt Brock, our special teams coach, really does a great job as far as getting that going. And he's one of the busiest guys in our building because he coaches defense and handles all the special teams with the help of our coaches. And then so I thought on special teams we played at a pretty high level, which I thought was good early in the season because you've got so many moving parts and so many different people playing.
Yeah, you had the great blocking on the Travell Harris run. You had the kicking game has been just fantastic. Dragicevic is one of the nation's leaders in not only punt average but net punting, so you're not getting big returns back, but you're actually getting all that yardage. And Blake Mazza's only missed one field goal, and he's just a first-year kicker from he's from Texas, but made all his extra points. You got to feel really good about the kicking game also.
Yeah, I thought both of those guys came in here and did a pretty good job. I mean, just came in and won the job, took control of it, and both are pretty confident guys. A lot of times your kickers can have kind of a squirrely personality, and you don't know which guy you're going to get. And I think a number of those guys have multiple personality disorders and things like that. Ours don't seem to, so I think that alone puts us ahead of a lot. And then so they go out there confidently and let it rip so far. So I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, Dragicevic had a 70-yard punt on there was the safety, but he let a 70-yarder go. He's actually had a couple of those, basically. I mean, he's had some boomers off the foot.
Yeah, one of his best punts of all time, and I wasn't sure on the rule, was there in Wyoming after that safety.
Right.
It lands an inch out of bounds, and I'm thinking it was a great punt. Turns out it's a free kick.
Right.
And so you got to keep that one in bounds. But he bombed it. I mean, the air on it, the distance. And then and I'd like to think he was aiming to try to get it out of bounds. Went out of bounds by like an inch. But anyway, called it back. So
super impressive. We're going to take it off football for a moment here, and every Friday is a every Friday is a movie night for the team. And Matt, with our physics departments here, asks you which sequels. So this is not an easy question. This is hard hitting stuff here, Coach. Which sequels were better than the originals that they came after?
Well, not Rocky, not Psycho. I have trouble thinking which ones have sequels. The Steven, I'm sure a couple of the Steven Seagal, the 3-word title. One of those could have been
Terminator. What about Terminator? Terminator 2, Terminator 1.
Yeah, they're all right.
All right. Okay. All right.
Let me think here.
Rambo.
Yeah, and I can't tell you which one. Although Rambo 1 was good.
Great flick. Absolutely.
Rambo 1 was good.
Yeah.
You're always disappointed. The Rambos are shorter than you'd like.
Right. Keep going. You want to keep going.
What's the one with Strahan in it? Stratham.
I don't know. Should I know
the guy the British guy that karates everybody, and I mean he just beats the snot out of everybody the whole game or the whole movie, and some of those are could be better. Oh, the what's the car thief one? One of those sequels was better.
Oh, you don't mean like no, you don't mean like Transporter or no.
Oh, he was in Transporter.
Statham?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I love that guy. Oh,
okay, some of his sequels are better.
Stuff's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, some of his sequels are better.
Yeah.
in his case, the ones that develop the characters the best are better. I thought the most recent Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
my opinion was that was the best one.
Really? I didn't see that one. I need to see that one.
I'd have to think on the Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe
right.
one there.
That's a possibility. Yeah. Great question, though. There's a lot. We might need to do that. That might be like a weekly question.
It's hard to narrow down to the sequels.
Right.
It's possible there's one or two. Some I
It requires some Google research, some like IMDb research to get that one fully.
Yeah, and then I'll be honest with you. I mean, my kids love them. Everybody loves them, and I go to them. But the superhero ones,
The Marvel movies.
they all look the same to me.
Yeah.
Transporter movies all look the same to me.
Right.
Repetitious crashes and things.
See, the Marvel thing, if you read comics and they're coming to life, like they could come out with Marvel like 720. I'm there. Like I'll be there every time. All that stuff.
And Harry Potter's not really a sequel because it's a story that continues.
Right. Well, there's more to come on this one. We'll keep going with this one. Good question, Matt. Thank you for that one. U.S. Bank, proud sponsor of the Washington State Cougars. U.S. Bank, the power of possible. We'll be back here live talking football and movies and all kinds of things, answering your questions with Coach Leach here at Zeppo's on the Washington State IMG Sports Network.
A call on the bookie call-in line at 866-COOG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
Back at it live here at Zeppo's Talking Football with Coach Leach. We'll actually go to the phone lines. We've got a caller listening in from Boise. Jonathan, you are live on the air here with Coach Leach live at Zeppo's. Jonathan, go ahead with your question live from Boise.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I just want to thank Coach Leach for everything that he's done for WSU, and very, very proud alumni and season ticket holder, and just very, very thankful for everything that Coach has done. My question is that so every year you get a new set of players that have a new set, new personality, and I'm just kind of curious how Coach might adapt his coaching technique with each new set of players.
I wish I had a perfect answer to that, because then teams would be that much better and elevate that much more, and everybody searches for that. I think it starts with the off season. You start with the off season, your team starts to develop an identity and show some strengths and deficiencies, and then through that and through the hard work and the grind, leaders are developed, and then some guys kind of evolve into leadership roles, and then based on some of their strengths, you try to utilize that and elevate that so that the rest of the players and the team draw from that. And then to the extent they can't, then you have to kind of micromanage it as a coach a little bit. And then as time goes on, you discover more and you can maybe expand a little bit. And so they're all moving targets. But one thing that's important is, to try to establish some things that they can do and do well. And then as they have success with that, then add to it.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much for the call. Really appreciate you calling in. 866-268-4825. If you'd like to get on the phone lines and talk to Coach, if you do give us a buzz, we'll cut you in line there on the questions we've got here on Twitter. We'll take a break, come back here live at Zeppo's on the Washington State IMG Sports Network.
Welcome back to the show. Time now to look ahead at this week's game with the Coors Light Opponent Preview. Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
All right, back here live at Zeppo's talking football with Coach Leach. Great to be with you. We've got about 20 minutes or so left in the show. You can call in 866-268-4825 if you want to give us a buzz. It's a time of the show where we go through the opponent preview. It's the Pac-12 opener on the road here in the Coliseum on Friday. And you played the Classic last year in Pullman on Friday, 30-27 final. A lot of the guys for the Trojans return. They do lose their leading passer, receiver, and rusher, but they've got tons of talent. When you look at them on film, what do you see for the USC Trojans?
Yeah, they're big and fast. I guess that's the best way to summarize it. And they have several players at key positions, but I can't say that one overshadows the next so much as just collectively they're a fast team with pretty good size at a lot of positions.
They seem to rotate a bunch of guys in and out too. They've got like 4 tight ends and 3 running backs and about 5 wide receivers they play, don't they?
Well, they like to slam it in there some. They like to slam it in there, play action and throw it, and then they've got a young quarterback that is real talented, and I think they're trying to get him on track too. He was the player of the year of the country or something like that. I mean, maybe the world if they had the whole world. And then, no, they're a talented group, and we need to, do what we did last year. Just go out and worry about playing the best that we can play, and see where it takes us once the dust settles.
Defensive coordinator Clancy Pendergrast is back. He's in his third year, longtime Pac-12 and NFL DC. What does he try to do? Is he blitzing you all the time? Is he hanging back? What's he trying to do?
He hangs back some. He hangs back some, but blitzes in between. So it's not like he tries to keep you off balance, mixes up the coverages. Blitzes a little more than average, and then but also will play off you too.
Christian Rector, defensive end, 6'4", 275. He's really, really fast on film too. He's a really good player. He's got a bunch of sacks in his career and tackles for loss and all that stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's an explosive guy. Long, rangy guy, but moves real well for his size.
Yeah. That's our opponent preview. Talking about USC, the Trojans 1-2. They lost their game against Stanford, so they're 0-1 in the Pac-12. Stanford's 3-0 now on the year. Back to the questions here on Twitter. There's a Washington State wide receiver fan page specifically tweeting this question. They want to know if you have any special staving off the flu sickness tips and tricks, as it is that time of year, getting toward fall. Hanging out in that cold weather watching Cougar football.
Oh, shoot. That's a great question. Well, my mom used to have us drink echinacea tea, which I think probably works a little. I guess. I mean, and then Antonio Huffman, and this is a home remedy.
Does Huff have a little trick?
Huff's trick is you drink a shot of bourbon.
Okay.
With let's see, what's he put with it? A shot of bourbon with vinegar and honey in it.
Really?
Yeah, you stir that up. Of course, the risk there is you might try to stave off the next flu and the next cold and the next cold and the next cold.
Yeah.
and get in bad shape on the first one, trying to shore up for the next 10 or so of them.
Yeah, and that's not one of those deals where you can do it all at once. You don't want to take like 5, 6, 7 shots at once. That's a one at a time kind of thing, I think.
No, I think it's supposed to be one and you go to bed.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to Huff about that. Thanks to the wide receiver fan page for that question. Mark from Riverside, who isn't here for this show but comes to many of the home shows. I don't even know the answer to this question. The Bone Award is given out to the top Cougar offensive lineman each week, and it's a pretty reasonable question, actually. There's not an actual bone trophy that you're giving.
Yeah, it's a rawhide dog bone.
Is it really?
It's a rawhide dog bone, and they get that. And then somebody with good penmanship, I think it's JP, writes on it. And those Sharpies work out perfect because it looks almost like it's printed if you have good enough penmanship. And put the name, the score, the date, and then my wife did it for years when I coached O-line, and that's when we started it. And then as I became a head coach, we continued that.
Well, that's a great question then, Mark. There you go. You get an actual bone for the Bone Award, which makes sense. We'll be back here live. We're going to take another break here. We're up against it as we're talking football here with Coach Leach live at Zeppo's, getting ready for USC on Friday for the Washington State IMG Sports Network.
Cougar Coaches Show. U.S. Bank, proud sponsor of the Washington State Cougars. The power of possible. Once again, here's Matt Chazanow.
Back here live at Zeppo's talking football with Coach Leach before the USC Trojans on Friday night. Clock never winds down at Northern Quest, 24/7 gaming, great restaurants and lounges, movie theaters, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. All right, getting set here for the USC Trojans. What a big game on Friday night. Do you like the Friday night showcase games? How do you feel about that?
I've always felt they ought to save Friday for the high schools. I don't, we recruit those high school kids all the time, and everybody likes watching them, but I don't want to take away the high school's thunder on that. And then, so I guess I prefer Saturday, but I mean, if it's Friday, you're excited to play for sure.
Right, for sure. And also there's probably something to the fact that there being fewer games. There's a certain national attention to it, right? That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, but I don't pay attention to that. I mean, we can play them in private for all I care, and then, and then brag about it afterwards. But I mean, it's we want as many people involved and as many people to share in the whole experience as we possibly can, and so I do think Friday provides that.
So we talked special teams. We talked a little bit of offense. Gardner Minshew. Let's talk a little bit of defense here. We haven't talked to you. 5th ranked D in the nation through 3 games, through a quarter of the year. You're surrendering 236 total yards per game and 14 points per game allowed, tied for 18th in the nation. The defense has been phenomenal. It's been really, really good.
Yeah, I thought they played, the biggest thing, we got a lot of energy and they run to the ball. And I mean, subtly there's all kinds of techniques and skills that we need to develop and play with lower pads and things like that. But we run to the ball well, have a lot of enthusiasm, have a lot of great coaches doing a good job creating a great atmosphere to learn in, and that's inspiring to play under, and so I think that's really been good.
Take our final break. We'll come back here before the USC game, Friday night kick between the Cougs and Trojans, live here at Zeppo's on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. Question here from Kevin. Kevin on Twitter, who I think what he means by this question have you thought of mixing in some rugby-style plays with your running backs and receivers? And everybody loves the idea of the hook and lateral, right? You throw that one pass in one direction. You get the old flag football play where you get the field going one way and the quick lateral. You ever thought about doing that with some of the trickeration, if you will?
Well, we spread it out, which that has some rugby concepts
Right.
too, as far as sideline to sideline. Yeah, so there's that about it. If that ball ends up on the ground, the consequences are a little more devastating in football. So that's a thing that causes a little resistance on it. When I was in college, I used to referee flag football, and
That's amazing.
and I needed an intramural job, and that one didn't require some of the brutality that exists in some of those things.
Well, I'm also picturing you refereeing flag football, just assessing the quality of the play
Hey, I
calling.
kind of punched the clock there.
Okay, all right, all right.
But there was a team called Colorado. All the guys were from Colorado, and they referred to their team as Colorado. And they didn't throw the ball hardly at all. They might throw it zero. And this is in flag football, which is almost always all pass.
Right.
It's almost always all pass. Well, no, this team pitched and handed it off and flipped it one to the other. And so as they're going downfield, like rugby, somebody would always be tailing whoever had the ball. Whoever had the ball, somebody would always be tailing it. And so they may throw it to the perimeter to put it in play or something like that. But then everybody was going to hustle and be in position. And what I heard is they used to practice quite a bit. And they took a lot of pride, and they may win the intramural championship, which, if you think about it, BYU had 28,000 students. So that's pretty good if you win that whole thing. And they did it on the ground. So, but it was pitch, and it really was impressive to see. I always enjoyed watching those guys play.
Oh, yeah. That's all about throwing the ball. That's not easy to do. Kevin, thanks for your question, and thanks for the spirit of your question, because talking football, philosophy in that way is a little bit different. But you're right. The fumble is so punitive it's so much different. In rugby, if it hits the ground, it's a different beast.
Well, in flag football, it is too. I mean,
right.
it's the next down. But
right.
No, they were not many big guys, kind of just little bitty quick guys, and they'd run around. This guy pitched here, and that guy's right there, and and you could tell they'd been playing together for a while too.
Really knew what was going
on. And because most of these teams think up some elaborate, cool name. All the stuff, superhero type of names.
Right.
And these guys, their name was Colorado. So they did. They had good imagination on their plays, not necessarily the name of their team, but they're as good a flag football team as I saw when I was in college.
Somebody somewhere, maybe they're listening to this, has just they're trying to figure out a way how to get you in the summer to draw up their flag football plays, and then when they win the league, say, "Well, Coach Leach drew up all my flag football."
Well, you can't. Yeah, the thing with the Colorado, you can't really draw up their plays because they're just flowing. I mean, they have a starting point, I'm sure. And then all those guys were going to just fly around the ball, so they were within striking distance of, to get the pitch. And I was playing rugby at the time. I was playing varsity rugby at the time, and I'm thinking, well, I'll probably see some of these guys out here because it really did have kind of a rugby quality to it.
Yeah.
And none of those guys played rugby, which surprised me a little bit because I figured they might have drawn some of it from that.
All right, I think I hear that fight song in the background there. That means we got to put a bow on it. Yep, there it is. Thanks so much for everybody coming here to Zeppo's. Great to see everybody. Much thanks to Jerry Kylo. Does such a great job. Jared Prengruber in the corner there. He's the man. Does such a great job. Great to see everybody. It is a 7:30 kick, 5:30 airtime. Derek Dice and the guys will be on the air, and then we'll be live in the Coliseum. Coach, thank you so much for the time. Go Cougs.
All right, go Cougs. Thanks so much to everybody that came to the show.